You paid the invoice. 3 months later, you paid it again. And 3 months after that, you stood in your own kitchen, coffee in hand, watching the exact same technician spray the exact same baseboard he sprayed last quarter. $400, $500, $700. And the Roaches, they came back every single time. You thought you were buying a solution, but you weren't. You were buying a subscription to your own problem. And the multi-billion-dollar company on the other end of that invoice knew it before the technician even knocked on your door. There's a number the pest control industry absolutely hates saying out loud. $26 billion a year. That is just in the United States. And a massive slice of that money flows from one single creature, the cockroach. But that cash doesn't flow from dead bugs. It flows from a schedule, monthly service contracts, quarterly retreatments, annual renewals. Giants like Terminix and Orkin didn't build their empires by solving your roach problem. They built them by making sure your problem never quite goes away. Because a cured customer is a canceled contract. So instead, they spin a story. You're told the infestation is complex. You're told those over-the-counter sprays at the hardware store are practically useless. You're told you need professional-grade chemicals, specialized equipment, and a guy in a uniform on a recurring schedule. What you're never told is that a mixture costing roughly $3, made from ingredients probably sitting in your pantry right now, eliminates a roach colony permanently. At a biological level, they physically cannot adapt to. This isn't some hidden formula locked in a classified lab. It's been heavily documented for decades. Tonight, by the time you finish watching this, you will know exactly what that mixture is, how it destroys a colony from the inside out, and the precise spots in your house to put it. But stay with me, because there is one stupidly common mistake that turns this permanent fix into a temporary joke. And most people who try this make that exact mistake without ever realizing why it failed. You won't be one of them. Let's do some quick, uncomfortable math. A single pest control visit costs between $300 and $600. The industry standard is a recurring monthly contract. Let's take the low end, $300 a month, 12 months a year. That is $3,600 extracted from your household annually for a treatment that is explicitly designed to suppress, not eliminate. That is not a flaw in their system. That is their revenue model. Scale that up. Over a 5-year stretch in a single household, you're looking at $18,000 gone. Over a decade, that number crosses $36,000. That's a down payment on a house. That's a kid's first year of college tuition. Literally evaporated into a service contract engineered from day one to never fully finish the job. Now place that $36,000 next to this number, $3. That is the cost of a large bottle of boric acid powder at any pharmacy or hardware store. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, university researchers published study after study proving elimination rates above 90% using a shockingly simple bait. 3 ingredients: boric acid, plain white sugar, and a few drops of water. You mix equal parts of the acid and sugar, add water until it forms a thick paste, and roll it into tiny balls. The sugar attracts them. The boric acid destroys their nervous system and stomach lining. But here's the genius part. Roaches are cannibals. They eat the bait, crawl back deep inside your walls where the spray guys never reach, and die. Then the rest of the colony eats the dead roach, and they die too. It is a biological Trojan horse. But those findings just sat in academic journals. They were never packaged for you. They were never put in a Super Bowl commercial. Why? Look at the ratio. $3 versus $3,600 a year. That is a markup of 1,200 times. You could buy a bottle of boric acid every single week for an entire year and still spend less than half of one professional visit. The math is so grotesque, it almost doesn't feel real. So when you look at that $26 billion industry, understand what it actually represents. It is not the cost of pest control. It is the cost of making sure the real solution is never cheap enough to cut them out of the deal. And this is where the rabbit hole gets incredibly deep. Because the single number this entire industry depends on you never calculating is the difference between what you pay and what it actually costs to fix it yourself. And once your brain registers that gap, you start seeing the exact same architecture everywhere. It is not just pest control, it is sitting in almost every recurring bill attached to your life. The question stops being, why is everything so expensive? And becomes something much more uncomfortable. Who actually owns the solution, and why are you renting access to it every month? Think about what happens behind your refrigerator. A guy shows up, sprays a contact chemical, and leaves. The bugs on the surface die. The colony deep inside the wall survives and repopulates. 3 months later, repeat. You aren't paying for extermination. You are paying for the illusion of extermination. The product is not a dead colony. The product is your next appointment. Now pull back and look at your bank account. It is the exact same shape. You earn an income, and immediately, chunks of it fly out to services designed to manage your problems rather than resolve them. Monthly subscriptions, rolling contracts, automatic renewals. This is the hidden value layer of society that most people never examine. In every transaction, there are two positions. One side holds the method, the formula, the knowledge. The other side holds the bill. And the entire modern economy relies on the bill side, never realizing how simple the method actually is. A roach colony worth thousands in service contracts over a decade gets wiped out by a $3 paste. The gap between those two numbers isn't just profit. It is a measurement of how aggressively basic knowledge has been hidden from the working class. Every household running a monthly pest contract is just experiencing, in miniature, the same extraction loop that operates across your insurance premiums, your maintenance agreements, and your software subscriptions. The person doing the actual work, the one mopping floors or grinding at a desk at midnight, isn't building equity. They're just feeding a structure that converts their exhaustion into someone else's recurring revenue. The narrative you are fed says, work harder, stay disciplined, keep paying. The reality says, the guy collecting your payment owns a $3 formula, and he's charging you $600 a year not to teach it to you. So, when you finally mix that paste yourself, you are doing more than killing bugs. You are collapsing a tiny piece of an extraction loop. But knowing this gap exists, that doesn't do anything. Knowing without doing is just expensive awareness. It keeps you broke. What actually changes the number in your bank account is one incredibly boring 5-minute action that nobody wants to do, because it feels like nothing, which is exactly why it works. Here is the play. Tonight, not tomorrow, not this weekend. Tonight, before you go to sleep, you open last month's bank statement, not the colorful pie chart on your banking app, the actual boring line-by-line transaction list. You scroll to the bottom and you work your way up. Every single recurring charge you see, you write it down on a piece of paper. Physical paper. Not a note on your phone that you'll swipe away in 2 days. A physical piece of paper that you leave right on your kitchen counter where it will stare you dead in the eyes while you make your coffee tomorrow morning. You aren't looking for the big numbers. You already know about your rent. You know about your car payment. The numbers quietly bleeding you to death are the financial roaches. The $14 here. The $8 there. The $7.99 you subscribed to in a moment of weakness 11 months ago and haven't opened since. One woman who tried this exact exercise found 63 pounds a month vanishing from her account for services she couldn't even name without Googling them. That is nearly 800 pounds a year. She was literally paying a premium for the privilege of forgetting she was paying. The reason this paper method works, when fancy budgeting apps and complex spreadsheets fail, is because it bypasses the part of your brain that loves to negotiate. A budgeting app asks you to make a decision. It says, how much should we allocate to entertainment? And your brain, which has been socially engineered by every subscription service on earth to undervalue small costs, says, oh, it's fine, it's only $8. The paper doesn't ask you to decide anything. The paper just forces you to see. And seeing is the one thing the recurring revenue economy spends billions trying to prevent. Companies price these services at $9.99 precisely because it sits just beneath your threshold of giving a crap. It is mathematically engineered to be forgettable. Your only job tonight is to make it impossible to forget. Cancel one. Just one. Find the smallest, most obviously useless charge on that piece of paper and kill it. Don't try to overhaul your whole life tonight. Don't download a new finance app. Don't set a grand 10-year savings goal. Just kill one recurring charge and leave the paper on the counter. That single cancellation is not going to make you rich. But it does something far more dangerous to the system that has been draining you. It proves the charges aren't fixed. It proves the number moves when you touch it. And once your brain registers that, once you feel the friction of actually hitting cancel and watching that confirmation email land in your inbox, something shifts. You stop treating your bank statement like the weather, something that just rains down on you, and you start treating it like a machine you are allowed to operate. That is the crack in the wall. That is where the colony of bad financial habits loses its grip. Because once you've killed one, the next one gets easier. You suddenly have hard evidence that the money was never supposed to leave in the first place. Here is what nobody in the finance space will say to you out loud. You can walk away. At any point. There is no contract locking you in. I'm not selling you a $400 masterclass to hold this information hostage. Everything laid out here costs you nothing but your attention and a few minutes of honest math. When you do this, the results show up quietly. A family that used to get overdraft fees every other Friday, feeling that familiar gut drop when the bank notification pops up, suddenly sees the bleeding slow down. Within 2 weeks of one correct adjustment, the cycle breaks. No financial advisor required. No $400 consultation. What you are building here isn't wealth. Not yet. What you're building is the one thing the financial industry refuses to sell you because they can't charge a monthly fee for it. Breathing room. The ability to absorb a $500 shock without borrowing against your own future. That is not a small thing, but it raises a question most people never get far enough to ask. There is one more layer beneath every budget hack you've ever been told. It is entirely structural. It lives hidden inside the way your bills are timed, the way your accounts are arranged, and the exact sequence your payments leave your bank. Fixing it takes about 10 minutes and costs less than a cup of coffee. And once you understand how the system relies on you getting that sequence wrong, you will never look at payday the same way again. That is exactly what we are tearing apart in the next video. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you there.